When you first get your clay, you're going to receive it either in a slab like this one or just a chunk of clay. The important thing to notice with clay is that you do not want it to dry out. The more it dries out, the harder it's going to be to make your piece. You're going to have approximately 4 to 5 days to do this. The more you touch it, the longer it stays out in the air, the quicker it's going to dry up. So you should have 2 grocery bags. You're going to store any clay that you are not currently working on in a grocery bag. Make sure that you twist it and tie it up so that air cannot get inside of this. To get started, we are going to make the body. For the body, I'm going to divide my clay into 4 semi-equal pieces. So I'm using 1/4 of my clay to construct the body. This extra clay we're going to place into our grocery bag, twist it up, and put it to the side so no air can dry it out. When you set your bag to the side, make sure that it is sitting on top of that tucked in piece. We are going to start by taking this chunk of clay and rolling it into a sphere. I'm going to start by shaping the neck. We kind of want the body to be a pear shape, so by squishing it here at the top, you can see the form of a pear. Now that we have it looking like a pear, we're going to use either our thumb or I'm using my knuckle. We're going to start pinching it down around the base to hollow it out. You don't want your piece to be completely solid because then it's too thick and it will cause your piece to break in the kiln. Make sure that you keep in mind what you are trying to make. I am trying to make stitch, so I actually want a shorter neck and a bigger, rounder body. I'm going to use my thumb and my fingers on the outside and use a pinching motion, just like a pinch pot, and we're going to start working from the outside or let's start the base of this up towards the outside rim. This is turning it into a pinch pot at the bottom. Remember, you want a nice, even thickness all the way around. It should not be thicker than your thumb or smaller than your pinky. Now that I have got the body started, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to place it into a grocery bag once more. So that way it is not drying out as I make the head. So I placed it in the bag, carefully twist it under, and set it on top of that twist so no air can get inside. Now we're going to take the other 1/4 of clay that I ripped off earlier, and we're going to also turn this into a sphere. Make sure that when you are squishing it down, you are getting rid of all the air bubbles. This is called wedging. It's very important that you don't have any air trapped in there, otherwise you could cause your piece to break in the kiln. Continue to roll it into a sphere. Now that you have a sphere, we're going to make another pinch pot. I like to start my pinch pot with my knuckle, just so my fingernail isn't going through it. I kind of push it around my knuckle, turning at the same time. Once you have it started, you are going to have to use your thumb and your pointer finger to pinch it from the bottom, turning slowly, working your way up to the top. If you start here, it is going to get too thin and it will break on you. Start at the bottom. You are feeling
for how thick that clay is between your fingers while you're pushing it. Remember, you don't want it thinner than your pinky, but it also cannot be thicker than your thumb. As you are creating the pinch pot, I am making sure that it is smooth and as even as possible, even laying it flat on the board to make sure it is even on the top. I have taken out another little piece of clay from my extra bag, and I'm going to roll this into a sphere as well. Think about it like a small marble size. Once your sphere is the right size, you're going to just simply take your thumb and gently squish it down a little bit. We are going to make this a little donut that we attach to the inside, and where eventually we will attach the spring wire so that way the head will bobble. To attach this, we have to slip and score. I'm going to use that toothpick and I'm going to roughly scratch that donut piece, and then also roughly scratch inside where I'm going to be adding that piece. Both pieces need to be scored in order to lock together. Once both pieces have been scored, we are also going to add slip, which is going to act like the glue to connect those together. Make sure it is stirred up so that way you don't just get water, you also get that liquid clay in there. And then just use your finger to apply it to both pieces. Now that you have slipped and scored both pieces, you're going to gently squish them together. That is the third S. You're doing this very gently. You're not pushing too hard, just enough to connect them. Use the back end of your toothpick to push a hole through the donut and a little bit into the head. You're going to wiggle it around a little bit because clay shrinks as it dries. Not too much though that it's too big for the spring that we will add in later. I have taken the body back out because now it is time to create arms and legs to add to the body. Tear off what you think you might need and put away anything extra in your grocery bag. Make sure that no air can get to it. I'm going to start by creating the feet first. I want the little legs sticking out like he's sitting down. So basically I have little ball feet. When creating things like arms and legs that are supposed to be the same size, make sure you make them at the same time. So I usually start by rolling my spheres of clay and putting them next to each other to see if they are the same size or if I need to add or take away any clay. Remember, any clay that sits out is slowly drying on you, so put it away if you're not currently using it. I even put the body away so it wasn't drying out while I sculpt and create the feet. I decided that for Stitch's feet, I really wanted to see his little claws because he is an experiment monster. So I wanted to create each individual toe and see if I could make little nails and see if they don't break. Spoiler alert, the nails do break off later on once they're fired. So just stick with the toes. I started by rolling little spheres of clay to make the toe nails. Since I messed up the original spheres by taking off pieces to make the toenails, I had to re-roll my spheres. And my clay video got a little interrupted by Pretzel, so everybody say, "Hi, Pretzel." She was very curious about the clay. So back to the clay project. I re-rolled my spheres, and then I gently used my thumb to flatten it out. And then utilizing any of the tools that you have available to you in your tray, you can use them to carve things out, to draw things on, or in my case, I'm using it to actually help make the separation between the toes by kind of gently rolling it across there and making a dent. Make sure that as you are working, you are keeping things smooth so that way you don't have any sharp edges once it's fired. To add the toes, I decided to make little dents um, on each toe to create the spot for the nail to fit inside of. Then I slipped and scored each nail into that dent. And then I immediately repeated those same steps with the second foot to make sure that they were kept the same size. Once your feet or legs are created, all you need to do is figure out where they are supposed to attach at, and then slip and score to attach them. Keep in mind, slipping and scoring are very important to keeping your pieces attached. If you don't do that, it won't stay. I like to scratch it with just scoring first, then apply slip, gently squish it onto the piece, and then your final thing is to smooth it. Now I'm going to begin working on his front legs, or we can call them arms. This time I'm going to be making coils to make the arms look like they're going down and holding him up in the front because I need them a little bit longer. When you are rolling a coil, you start with a sphere and then you're trying to get an even rope of clay. To do this, use the palm of your hand and not the ridges of your fingers. You want to push very gentle and be very patient. If you push too hard, you can create that flat edge. Slowly rolling the clay is going to create a nice even coil. Make sure that you are checking the size for how wide you need your coil and then also how long you're going to need your coil as well. Remember that as you are making something that it has to be duplicated, like there's two arms the same size, try to make them at the same time so you can get them closer to being the same size. Now that I've got both arms created, I'm going to work on forming those into the actual shape of arms and hands that I want them to be. I'm going to be using some of the same techniques that I used creating the other feet, squishing them down, making the hands flatter, using the tools to gently press a dent into it, adding the fingers and fingernails to it, just repeating those same steps once more. You will also notice that as I was adding the hands, I realized it needed a bit more clay to make it a bit wider. You can also do that as well. Just remember to slip and score anytime you attach the items. Now that the arms or front legs are sculpted, it's time to attach them. Remember, anytime you're attaching something, you slip, score, squish, and smooth them on. When it comes to trying to smooth the seams and everything on small pieces like this, feel free to use some of the tools that you have in your tray to help with that in reaching those smaller areas. I have put the body away, wrapped up in the grocery bag, and now I have the head out again. It is time to turn this pinch pot into the head of your creature. We're going to start adding more things on there or making the shape of this fit the actual creature that we want. In my case, Stitch's head is a little bit um, kind of pointy on the edges. It's more of a flat domed shape rather than a perfect hill. If you feel like you need to add clay to it, you can. I kind of sculpt what I want to add there, do a little dry fit test to see if that's the right amount, and then always make sure that you slip and score when attaching any item to your clay piece. Make sure that you don't just slip score, but you also squish and then really smooth it onto your piece. That extra bit of clay that I added has now brought Stitch's nose out a little more pointy in his face. Before I begin to add nose, eyes, ears, all that kind of stuff that goes on a head, I like to use the toothpick and gently draw on the clay so that way I can estimate the size and shape of what I'm going to need without completely messing up my piece. Because once you scratch it, and if you just do it lightly, you can take your finger over and just smooth out that scratch and it's completely gone. You also have the option to use some other tools um, to either carve out or create dents in your clay. For instance, I want to carve out a little bit of the clay so that way it's more of an eye socket. And then when I roll a little ball of clay later, it will fit right into this little indent. Remember that anytime you need to make duplicates of something, make it at the same time. And that anytime you are attaching things, No matter where or what it is, you must slip and score to attach it. I quickly sculpted a nose in a similar fashion to the eyes, just sculpting, squishing it into a triangular shape for the nose, and then using the toothpick to make the nostril holes. Make sure that you use the four S's when attaching pieces: slip, score, squish, and then smooth it. You can also create slabs to make pieces to add on to it. That is what I'm going to do for the ears. I'm kind of just estimating how much clay, what size I'm going to need to make the ears a stitch. His ears are pretty large, so I started by sculpting it, and then I'm going to roll this into a slab. Remember, a slab is a flat pancake of clay. Don't make it too thin. It can't be any thinner than your pinky, and it can't be any thicker than your thumb. If you make it too thin, it could break off later. Once I have the general size that I want for these ears in a slab, I'm going to use a toothpick and I'm going to cut out whatever shape I need to add or change about these ears. If you need two pieces the same size, remember, do them at the same time. In this case, you can literally trace the other one. Don't forget to make sure things are smooth as well, because if you leave anything jagged or rough, it will be sharp once it is fired. Stitch's ears tend to kind of gather at the base when it reaches the head. So before I attach it, I'm going to slip and score where this kind of folds together at the end. Now that the ears are both made, it is time to attach them by slipping and scoring. Once you have them slip scored, don't forget to smooth the seam to make sure that it helps seal and connect that piece to your clay project. Don't forget that if your character has a tail, you're going to do very similar steps to sculpting and then slipping and scoring that tail on there. The last step is to create the other end hole of the hole where the spring is going to go. Remember, we created that hole with the toothpick on the head earlier, and now we need to create the other end in the neck of the body. So put that toothpick in and then just gently wiggle it around because clay shrinks as it dries. The final step is to use a damp sponge and make sure everything is completely smooth. If it is bumpy now, it's still going to be bumpy when it comes out of the kiln. The final step on Friday will be to take your toothpick and gently scratch in your initials. You also need to put the number of dots for the classroom class period that you have me. For instance, if you are in fourth period, you are going to put 4 dots under your initials. If you are in seventh period, you're going to put 7 dots under your initials. You need to do this to both pieces so that way you get back the correct pieces to paint after they've been fired. These are going to get all mixed up in the kiln, and I'll have no way of telling whose is whose other than your initials. So don't forget it. I can't wait to see what you can create.